Ask any historian what built the British Empire. They'll say industrial revolution, naval power, Protestant work ethic. Cute. But wrong. The real foundation? This. A 5-pound note. Smells like cotton. Feels like paper. And if you hold it up to the light, you can still see the watermark. 12 million souls, collateralized. This is the story of how the world's most trustworthy currency was financed by the world's most organized crime, and how that crime never ended. It just got better accountants. The British pound sterling. For 300 years, it's been the gold standard of stability. But here's what they don't teach you in economics class. Before it was backed by gold, it was backed by sugar, opium, and chains. And the innovation wasn't banking. It was laundering. In the next 50 minutes, we're going to trace how every thread in Britain's financial tapestry, from the Bank of England to your pension fund, is dyed in colors they'd rather you not see. 1793. Lord Macartney sails to China with gifts, clocks, telescopes, the whole civilized world in a box. He wants tea, silk, porcelain. He offers trade. The emperor says, "We don't need your trinkets. We have everything." Britain's problem? They need China's tea. Desperately. And it's draining their silver. So what's a good empire to do? They don't tighten their belt. They get creative. Meet William Jardine. He doesn't trade tea. He trades opium. British grown in India, smuggled into China. By 1830, opium isn't a drug. It's Britain's payment processor. When China tries to burn it, Britain doesn't negotiate. It sends gunboats. Not for free trade, for the most profitable payment system ever invented. The Opium Wars weren't about liberty. They were about liquidity, the triangular trade, textiles to Africa, Africans to Caribbean, sugar to Britain. But here's what they gloss over. Nobody paid cash. It was all paper. Bills of exchange, marine, insurance, futures, contracts on crops not yet planted. Thomas Leyland, Liverpool porter turned mayor, didn't just run 50 slaving voyages. He securitized them. He took promissory notes from planters, turned them into bonds, and used them to fund more ships. The slave wasn't cargo. He was collateral. Lloyd's of London didn't just insure ships. They underwrote the risk that your human asset might die mid-voyage. There was a tariff for that, a formula. By 1780, the plantation's value wasn't in land. It was in the securities it generated. The pound sterling had become the world's first derivative, backed not by gold, but by human futures. Henry Drax inherited a small estate in 1659. By 1680, he's clearing £8,000 a sterling million today. Sterling million today. How? Not by farming, by depreciation. His slaves had a 7-year useful life. He ran them like a Toyota assembly line. But here's the key. Henry never spent a penny in Jamaica. He shipped it all to London, not as gold, as bills of exchange drawn on his city agent, secured by next year's sugar crop, which was secured by the unborn children of his slaves. These bills, the Bank of England discounted them, made them money. Your pound note might have been backed by a man boiling sugar in Barbados. The Drax family used the profits to buy land, titles, parliamentary seats. They became the establishment. The City of London's first skyscrapers, built not on coal, on collateralized suffering. In 1694, 36 merchants founded the Bank of England, officially to fund a war with France, unofficially to monetize genocide. They issued maritime mortgages, sterling bonds backed by the probable proceeds of slaving voyages. Investors got 8% returns, guaranteed by the Royal Navy. But the masterpiece was the South Sea Company. They promised to refinance the national debt. Then they secured the monopoly to sell slaves to Spain. But suddenly, every bishop in England wanted in. Why? They weren't trading humans. They were packaging them into dividend yields. When it collapsed, Prime Minister Walpole called it the most daring fraud. But the model, it never stopped. Barings financed the Louisiana Purchase with Haitian slave profits. Rothschild underwrote Brazilian independence bonds, secured by coffee plantations running on Africans. By 1800, 30% of Britain's revenue was interest on colonial debt. The pound wasn't backed by gold. It was backed by compound interest on suffering. Richard Arkwright, father of the factory system, his first £5,000 sterling loan from Haywood's Bank in Liverpool. Haywood's Bank was built on sugar futures and slave mortgages. Arkwright's water frame didn't run on ingenuity. It ran on liquidated lives. Every bolt of cloth from Manchester carried 2 price tags, one in pounds, one in lives per yard. The genius wasn't steam power. It was abstraction. The plantation gave 8% returns. The factory gave 20%. But the factory only existed because the plantation primed the pump. The real innovation, collateralizing suffering, leveraging it into infrastructure, and calling it development. The pound. It became a claim check, redeemable for 1 unit of empire, secured by the collateral of the dead. 1752. Darling. The British government sells you a console, a perpetual bond paying 3% forever. What they don't say. Your interest comes from a tax on Jamaican sugar and Charleston slaves. Your retirement? A royalty on human cargo. By 1807, Parliament abolishes the slave trade. Not the practice, the trade. Because the market was saturated. The margins were gone. They compensated owners with £20 sterling million in fresh bonds, paid by British taxpayers. The slaves were freed, but their value was securitized and paid out. Lloyd's of London didn't shred the insurance contracts. They repriced them. You couldn't insure a person anymore. How barbaric. But you could insure a plantation. Same actuarial tables, different branding. The pound emerged more liquid. Suffering had been fully financialized. The empire didn't end slavery. It IPO'd it. Adam Smith, father of capitalism, prophet of the invisible hand. What he didn't put in the wealth of nations, his massive holdings in the Royal African Company. The invisible hand could pick cotton while writing about liberty. Thomas More called the slave trade the fountain of our national strength. Not a metaphor, a fountain, but the laureate, Malachi Postlethwaite. His 1740 pamphlet, The Importance of the African Expedition Considered, was a McKinsey pitch for genocide. He drew charts, calculated OI, demonstrated 8% yields. He was the Bain capital of bondage. The city didn't need to see plantations. They saw yields, and yields have no conscience. 1833. Parliament abolishes slavery and pays owners £20 sterling million. That's 40% of the national budget. In today's money, £2.50 billion. Who paid? Not owners. They received it. Taxpayers did. Many living in industrial squalor, paying interest on freedom they never stole. The Drax family took the money and bought railways in India, mines in South Africa. The sugar islands collapsed without free labor. But the pound didn't, because the money had flown. The system didn't fail. It molted, shed its skin. Abolition wasn't the end. It was the IPO of a new, improved empire. 1816. Britain goes on the gold standard. A moment of fiscal responsibility, they said. What they really did was swap one barbarism for another. Gold was just the wrapper. The product, global debt. You, Argentina, want railways? Borrow sterling bonds from Barings. Deposit your gold in London. Export beef to pay interest. You're not a nation. You're a franchise. By 1850, Britain didn't need plantations. Just issue debt in sterling. India's railways, built with forced labor, paid for with bonds draining £30 a year to London. The pound had become a protocol, like Bitcoin. But for empire, you didn't need to understand it. You just needed to plug in. The original sin had been laundered so thoroughly that by 1900, even Victorians believed their own propaganda. They thought they were civilizing the world. They were collecting rent on a mortgage from 1655. 2020. Lloyd's apologizes. No reparations, of course. That money's been reinvested, compounded. The Bank of England still holds those colonial bonds. Crisp paper, paying 3% into perpetuity. Some are still technically outstanding. Every time the pound wobbles, Brexit, Liz Truss, markets still buy it. Why? Institutional strength. That strength was built in the holds of ships. When you hold a fiver, you're holding a derivative of human suffering, refinanced so many times, the sin is just a line item. Try tracing it. You'll hit a dead end in the Cayman Islands of 1850, where the Drax family's trust still pays dividends. Legally. So, here's the final question. Is there clean money? Or is every unit of wealth a story we agree to believe? Some stories are bloodier. The British pound is proof. If you launder something long enough, through bonds, banks, the fog of history, it comes out spotless. But the debt remains. Not on the books. On us. We still believe in the pound. And belief is the most expensive collateral of all. If this changed how you see money, hit like. If you think this history should be taught, share it. And if you want more receipts from the ledger they don't want you to read, subscribe. The next story is about how the dollar was born on a battlefield. You won't look at your wallet the same way again.